Just a slight tangent on that.
This is far too much of a tangent. Just a brief interruption.
Can I also say one more thing on this?
But we also need to impose some rules. Like, we can't just have 20-minute tangents over a text.
Come on. That's just refusal to consider the circumstances. I'm not going to entertain that, Joe.
This conversation is not a good one, I think. Do we argue much?
No, we keep them inside.
Fester.
See, I thought this was a ridiculous text until I read the top 3, and then I thought, you know what? I'd actually debate that with you. It is an interesting... Sorry, it's not an interesting question, but...
Let's make that clear.
I love the sound of a snooker referee counting up the score.
Now, welcome. We go once again. A Slight Tangent is coming at you. A Slight Tangent at offtheball.com is where you can get us, as many of you have. Too many emails. We are inundated, but thank you all the same. And some topics of our own as well. Mick McCarthy has a few bees in his bonnet. Michael, hello.
As always, Joe, good evening.
Will O'Callaghan, hello.
Evening, lads. It's a good complaint to have, too many emails, which also guarantees if your comment is read out now, your email has passed the standard test.
That's true. Do we need to invest in some kind of mug or t-shirt?
Or an intern to read through them before we have to read them.
Yeah, you are really passing so many different types of tests, as in, like, is your point good? Yeah, that's like 5th or 6th down the list. Can I read your email? Can I do it quickly?
Be some kind
is it well written?
Some kind of AI to go through the dross.
Gaps in paragraphs, guys, very important. A big page of writing is just a blur. It's very hard to read.
Okay.
I'm not against the tangent cup, by the way. You become a tangenteer if your email is read out or something along those lines.
Very good. Dr. O'D is on secondment, so the people's champion
in the Yukon.
The backbone of OTB AM is how he asked me to introduce him. It is Colm Boohig, back again for a second time.
Needs
second time. You must not have been that bad the first time.
Wow. You had it in the palm of your hands this week. You had Dave McIntyre.
Yeah.
You had him available.
Slipped through my fingers.
And look where we are now. You know, the first time I said it was kind of like John Frusciante, because he was a fan of Red Hot Chili Peppers. But of course, he joined the band. I never joined them. This is more like when someone's asked to guest host or guest appear on Saturday Night Live for the second time. Mm-hmm. So I take it as a bit of a compliment.
Huge.
You're not at Paul Simon levels yet, but
yeah.
Or, you know, the Oasis got a new bass player around the time they did the Wonderwall video, and he only lasted 2 weeks, but he's forever in the Wonderwall video.
Wow. Good 2 weeks work.
So there you go.
Yeah.
What was his name, Colm?
Huh?
What was his name?
I'm really happy to be here.
Well, you're very welcome. So we'll get to various bits and pieces. By the way, just a quick addendum to the scoring charts conversation we had last week, where we were arguing if, you know, from free or from play is of major importance. And I only bring this up because they agree with me, I hasten to add. But I was listening to the football pod, and Tommy was reading out the scoring charts from play to James O'Donoghue and Paddy Andrews, and it was Colin Pascal and Con and Clifford. And then Tommy said, and do you want the scoring charts overall, like frees included? To which James O'Donoghue thankfully said, no, complete, who cares? Irrelevant. And Tommy said, no, I'll just read it out for you. He said, I don't care. And Paddy Andrews weighed in, irrelevant. Doesn't matter, frees are irrelevant. So I thought, lads, dead right.
Throwing shade at Dean Rock right there.
Yeah, well. Hello, Joe, and your fellow tangentlemen. I'll keep this short. In each of the last 2 Slight Tangents, you've introduced the show by declaring 5-6 weeks in a row they said it couldn't be done. Since I can't find one single person who said it couldn't be done, I'm fully expecting you to be managing an inter-county team this time next year. All jokes aside, keep AST coming every week. Best slot on the show, Martin. The person who says it's not going to happen is generally me off air.
Yes.
That's the person who says it couldn't be done. I don't think it should be done, but here we are.
Oh, so to follow that analogy through about the inter-county manager, basically what you're saying is that John Kiley saying that Limerick are being softened up and been saying they're no good, it's actually coming from John Kiley.
Yeah.
and that he's complaining about it.
Yeah, pretty much. I shoot us down off air all week, say it wasn't very good, say don't know if we do it next week, and then here we are.
You make yourself sound horrible.
This segment.
This thing. This is all I hear about all the time. Like everyone, I love a slight tangent. Do you do that? It's like, yeah, Off the Ball does, yeah. Yeah, it's really good. Yeah.
Is that right?
7 in a row. We've beaten the
7
Bucks today.
Yeah, but it's not the actual band. You know?
No.
You know, come on now.
Is a slight tangent.
Oh, come here. Do you know what happened before?
I think you're like there's a kind of a spiritual 6. Ronan Mullen gets a nod as a founding father. There's the core. Yeah. There's the core 4.
I forgot.
And then your first sub. First sub.
No, well, only because Mullen's gone up north again. Like, but come here. Do you know what I meant to say to you there? I came in and was like, Mick, wow, look at that bottle. That's unbelievable, that bottle that you have there. I never knew those existed around these parts.
Yeah.
Look at that for
New
the
stock revamp
viewers.
bottle.
For the non-viewers, it's just lovely. Anyway, I went out there just before we started recording, and Will is like, hey kid, catch, chew the bottle.
Yeah.
Had it.
Welcome to the
Present.
team.
Successful.
Well, you
I like
see,
it.
you're not on News Talk most of the time, but here you are
Everyone in
today.
the office has one. I hate to break it to you.
We don't anyway, but I thought it was a classy touch.
From Will.
It was
trying
our
to
gift to you for saving the slight tangent streak.
the streak. Let's get into things then. So, Michael, I know, wants to talk to you, Go. Before that, as a brief extension to our guest, I suppose, let's let him pick a topic. You sent a WhatsApp of a list of various things. We chewed it around here, agreed that most of them weren't great. So,
Hold on.
the one that we're happy to go with is Colm Boohig wanted to discuss this evening the one sports book that made you go, wow, wow, wow. And we thought that was an interesting way of pitching it. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it scary? I don't know. So the one sports book that made you, Colm Boohig, go, wow, wow, wow. I'm all ears. Go on.
Paul Merson, How Not to Be a Professional Footballer.
Okay.
I've read it 7 times.
Colm.
Did it get better on the 5th?
Has Paul Merson read it once?
The font is very user friendly, nicely spaced out, but the stories are phenomenal. Written in 2010.
Oh,
So he wasn't long retired, but it's remarkable that this guy had such a high level career and high achieving career considering what he was doing to himself. And he's incredibly transparent about everything.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, I look at sports people, especially talented ones, and I'm like, they're kind of alien to me. How can I relate to these people? They don't live like I live. And then this guy's basically living like the average person who has an average job, but is just incredibly high achieving. I understand and acknowledge that it was easier to do it at that time and people weren't generally as fit as they are now. If you look at the footballer's body, the typical body of a footballer in the 90s, they take off the shirt after the match. It's like they're not exactly ripped compared to now. Having said that, there was a lot of players doing what he did and didn't achieve anywhere near as much. Highly recommend it to anyone. Don't have to be a football fan. Dare I say, don't have to be a sports fan. It's like, how honest can a human being be in a couple of 100 pages?
Okay.
And he takes that challenge on.
I take my cheap quip back then. I haven't heard much about that book.
Well, it looks cheap.
Yeah.
Because the front cover is Mercer's face on a Stella can. And he's smiling.
Right.
So you think, not going to afraid.
And scream serious treatment.
It's a bit red top.
I read a Paul
Then you
Merson
read it.
autobiography.
How many does he have?
Well, I don't know, but this one I think was around the 1998 World Cup. He was playing with Phil at the time. It wasn't as profound as what Colm is suggesting.
And can I ask, in 2010, because I would say Paul Gascoigne's had a few.
I read his too.
There were a couple, and I felt there was a degree, certainly with one of them, of, and now I've got everything sorted out and everything's great and it's a story of redemption neatly packaged and there'll be no more trouble for me left. And that didn't quite ring true.
Well, Mercer does not say that.
Interesting.
At all.
Okay.
He leaves it being like, I don't know what's going to happen. And I believe he's in a good place now.
Okay.
But he's had his ups and downs the last 13 years since he wrote that book. But you know why I said the wow thing?
Yeah.
So you put it down, and I suppose the test of a good book is, are you thinking about it after you stop reading? Or do you just read to go to sleep or read as a hobby? I was putting this down and it took up a lot of my thoughts for the rest of that day. I was like, how did he do that? Like, he's talking about England duty under Graham Taylor, how he didn't get kicked out of the camp. Like, probably can't even say this on national radio, some of the stuff he was doing, and he's so blasé about it. Whoever ghostwrote it actually is very, very good at like capturing the Merce voice that we know from Soccer Saturday and Sky Sports in general, because it really is like he's writing it himself, and it really is like a diary of Paul Merson, the footballer. And you're left thinking, like, if this guy walked into a modern dressing room, he'd be laughed out of it in terms of his dedication or lack thereof.
But geez, not his talent. What a player.
Well, that's why I was drawn to it.
Very likeable man, I think.
So likeable.
Isn't he?
Yeah.
Bad behaviour are we talking? I know you say you can't give the specifics here. Is this like just off the field?
Is he cancelled by 2023 standards?
Not really cancelled. No, he doesn't. He's not hurting anybody else, really. It's more like his levels of drinking. And then he talks about the 10 months he was addicted to cocaine and the levels he would go to score. Like, he would go around nightclubs like 2 a.m. just asking people like, any chance. And this is the height of his Arsenal time. They just won the Cup Winners' Cup, like. So his drug year was February 1994 until basically the very start of 1995. And do you remember he had that really famous press conference where he broke down in tears? Yeah, that was him. He literally went in that morning to Arsenal and be like, I'm sorry, I can't keep this a secret anymore, because it wasn't just drugs, it was the gambling and the drinking as well. So he had all the vices.
Amazing.
And he said, like, you know, he's gone back on he's a terrible problem with gambling. He only did a documentary there last year on the BBC, and he was been drinking on and off, but the one thing he never touched again, according to himself, is after 10 months of cocaine, he was like, never again.
Okay.
And he was told, if you don't go to rehab this Christmas, that was Christmas 94, you won't be here next year for next Christmas. And then he goes back playing, and then he excels on the pitch, and Arsene Wenger comes in and he turns his life around for a few years at least, until he goes to Middlesbrough and rooms with Paul Gascoigne. Then he's back again.
Is that what happened, is it? Wow.
Yeah. Okay.
He was a brilliant player at Villa when he was probably past his best, but Jesus, he was a beautiful player to watch and lovely guy to have on your team, if you know what I mean. It's funny you mentioned about him being likeable, right? And Colm mentions the Graham Taylor era. You know, the Graham Taylor documentary. There's just a lovely moment that I feel like it's just such a nice, selfless moment in that where Ian Wright scores the late equaliser in that game. I think it was Poland, wasn't it? And Merson was in the squad but wasn't on the bench. So there's a group of guys in their tracksuits who are in the stand, so they're all Wright's in the dressing room with his shirt off and just like can't believe what happened. And then the squad guys come down into the dressing room. They're about 10 minutes behind, and Merson runs in, and he's just a guy who's like, he's so happy for his mate, you know what I mean? He's like, and he looks up and completely changes his demeanour. He goes from the whoa, what happened, to all excited, and they all start hugging and dancing. And it's just one of those things, like, Merson's obviously there at England duty, he's not even in the squad really.
That's
he's not
an impossible job.
Impossible job. If by the way, that's on YouTube, you should watch that once a year.
So GA Go, you said you want to talk GA Go. I think it bubbled up this week on account of the games on Saturday being behind closed doors. I'm not sure. I did it on the Sunday paper review. Eamon Sweeney was very critical of the deal. So like Sweeney's argument was very much these games should just not be behind closed doors. David Clifford's been on once this year. This is crazy. Mick Foley wrote about it in the Sunday Times. He came more at it from the point of view of the RTE controversy that we're in the midst of and the joint ownership here, and really can RTE with board members and GA Go and part of RTE, can they really turn to the taxpayer, the licence fee payer, and say, well, we're fighting tooth and nail to get you the best games, and also by the same token make sure that GA Go is a success and has good games? There is a very direct conflict there, which I think people are aware of. So that was the tone of Sunday. Were you more in the Eamon Sweeney, I just can't believe the GA is doing this vein? Was that what was anchored?
Yeah, I think if you read Eamon's piece, like I've never been madly against the sharing of rights and that not all games can be on free to air, but I do think this is in some ways slightly even different from the Sky deal. And the Sky deal, I feel like, had a lot more vitriol against it, and there was an element of, I don't know whether it was anti-Britishness or something akin to it that was there when it comes to the GA, you know. But like, even I saw Armagh and Monaghan in the pub on Saturday night. Now, I don't know if this is the case everywhere, because I think there might be a deal, but let's face it, most pubs are probably doing it this way, where I went in and the place was covered with Formula 1, 25 televisions. I'm like, what's going on here? Why aren't they showing this game? It's going to penalty shootout. Maybe they don't have GA Go. And then they had it on one TV where everybody was gathered around at the back, because I presume it was the only way they could stream it. It's not like just having Sky Sports. That's a tiny thing, but it's just, again, it's a point that it is different. The broadband issue around the country, the assumption that people are just able to use a streaming service in this day and age because people making the decisions in Dublin can, I think is a bit rich. And then absolutely it comes down to the fact that, you know, the GA make their broadcast deals, they're trying to get in their money whatever way they can. You can argue about them. I can see both sides of those arguments. I'm happy to have them, right? But from RTE's point of view, you're an investor in this. You're a 50-50 investor. You have D. Forbes was on the board of it, you know what I mean? Like, how can you say there isn't a conflict of interest there when the games are chosen? All the Munster hurling games that were on earlier in the season, choosing these quarterfinals, everything, having the fact that RTE own half of this company, and still the right deal remains the same as it was with Sky, where 2 quarterfinals in the football, and all 4, remember, preliminary quarterfinals initially, until Galway and Mayo drew each other and they went, hold on a second, and gave RTE a bonus game. All 4 were supposed to be behind the paywall. So when the championship gets knockout, when we're waiting for it all year, it's all we've been talking about, how good it'll be when it gets knockout, there are 11 games left at that point, right, in the championship. There's no replays, there's 11 games, and 6 of them, more than half, are down for GA Go. I think you have to seriously look at who's benefiting from that. And is it enough? Is it fair? Is it fair or is it not fair? The one thing I'd say, GA Go, and we should get into it, is I actually think their coverage has been brilliant. I actually think I got it early on because I felt like I had to. 3 of Clare's Munster Hurling Championship games were on it. I really had no choice. They got me. That was their plan, as Don Logue would put it, and fair enough. I paid the €80, and I've watched a ton of games that wouldn't be otherwise available. There is room for this. There is absolutely a place for those extra games for the hardcore fan that will pay for it. I don't think we should be putting knockout games, the end of the championship, where things really matter and where there's a massive demand for it, where RT would show them. We're not in the, I'm going to stop talking now, I'm sorry, but we're not in the kind of like Declan McBennett, there's no, we don't pass the 100,000 threshold for like League of Ireland games like he's talked about before. We're well over that for all of these games that we're talking about here. And look, maybe that should be the threshold. Is there a public interest in this, and should therefore it be on free to air, at least television, if not definitely RT?
Mick's hit the nub of the issue, which is, even in the circumstance where the bonus game was given just a couple of weeks ago for Mayo against Galway in the preliminary quarterfinals, you have this very unusual situation where if they were 2 competing broadcasters, there would have been a lot of back and forth about that. But in a way, RT are deciding with the company where they've already got a 50% share, we're just going to put on an additional game. And the 50% shareholder is the GAA, who decide what games you can show. Like, if you ever were thinking about a conflict of interest, there it is right there, that a bonus game can just be given. And it calls all the other decisions into question, because the core nature of GAA Go has changed so much over the last 2 or 3 years. Like, ultimately, GAA Go was meant to be about streaming in overseas territories initially when it was set up. Then during COVID, it was to add additional games to the TV deal, because people couldn't get to matches due to the COVID restrictions. And now it is purely a commercial beast with the intention of driving as many subscribers as you possibly can. So the idea of what GAA Go was originally has changed fundamentally since. I think the question marks are going to come over it even more so after what's happened with RT in the last couple of weeks. It's probably bad timing for both GAA Go and for RT for this to be up in the air at the time where we're in the business end of the season. And the reality is, like, we spoke about it when this agreement was written, that the 2 quarterfinals in the football were going to be exclusive to GAA Go, because essentially it was Sky's old deal that they were taking over. So we knew, and it was flagged a long way out, but the reality hits just the week before the game when people realise what matches are going to be behind a paywall. So therefore this is going to be the discussion coming out of the back of, let's say, season 1 of this type of GAA Go. And I think because of what's happened there, and because of now you've got, the Association of D-Forbes having been on the board and all that kind of extra little strands to the story, it's going to make it very difficult, I think, for the GAA to continue on with the deal in its current state, albeit it is signed for 5 years.
Yeah, I think
it's so stupid. Whatever, like, I agree with everything that Mick and Will have said there. We covered this in the performance rankings yesterday in the morning show. Why was there no Saturday game highlights? So there's a large cohort of the country, like, if you're Kerry, Tyrone, Armagh, Monaghan, you're not seeing any of that match. None of it. You're reading about it. The folklore. You might listen to it. You might listen to coverage of it. You might get analysis of it. People may have come to us for it and heard it on the radio.
Was it the late throw-in and it wasn't done till 9
whatever
PM?
About that, like the GAA Go thing, as Will pointed out, everybody knew this was coming and then it hit them when it actually came. Okay, fine, that happens. And then, as you say, late throw-ins, people might have plans on Saturday night. Fine, you accept that. But like, okay, well, we'll record the highlights that we were promised. So like, the Sunday game is a complete mess. Total mess. Like, it's 2 hours of a programme that's way too fast. They don't get anything done properly. They're racing through the games. They show about 3.5 to 4 minutes of the match itself. They hire pundits to come on and talk about it, so they're justifying the payment of those pundits who talk about the game twice the length of the game. Then they throw it to an ad break. We'll be back with the next game. It's so tiring to watch. It's on 9:30 on a Sunday night. Not many people are staying up to watch it. Oftentimes your team will be last, of course, like Armagh Monaghan were on Sunday night. So you don't have it on TV.
Sunday's games first,
which was crazy. Like they started with Dublin Mayo on the Sunday game. So you're a person who doesn't have access to GA Go or chooses not to, you don't have the Saturday game highlights, fine, Sunday game, I wait for that. Then you have to watch what you just watched already that day, and you have to wait until 10 past 11 on a Sunday night to watch your team. And by all accounts, I was told by a massive Monaghan fan, who was a fan of the show, said they did not show exactly what actually happened in full from that game. So if you were coming to it for the very first time watching those highlights, you wouldn't have got a full picture. It's crazy.
That's GA highlights in general, which we've talked about before.
The thing
and
that
talk about again.
surprised me, Colm, was in the end we only ended up with a handful of Saturday game programmes.
Yeah.
When there was so much fanfare about this when the deal was signed, was that
was a great
the Saturday
idea.
game was going to take the pressure off Sunday, and there's going to be 99 championship games this year, and now we're going to have a dedicated Saturday programme. And then the first week where I was waiting for it to happen was when Clare and Limerick was behind the paywall in the hurling at the start of the Munster Championship, and I thought, this is perfect. 9:30 Saturday game. Anyone who couldn't get it after hearing that the All-Ireland champions have just been beaten, no Saturday game. And then I was surprised when I heard Damien Lawler announce a couple of weeks ago that's us done for the season on the Saturday game. It's probably thinking, so we're going to have 2 football quarterfinals next week, you're going to have a hurling semi-final. Surely this is the perfect opportunity and the prime audience who'd want to tune in for a highlights programme, and the rug is gone.
How many Saturday games were there?
I think it was 6 or 7 in the end. It was only just a handful though.
Well, we'll see where it goes. I think your point about 6 and 11, it's a big figure.
Now it ended up the other way around, obviously, because of Galway.
Yeah, but 50%
Mayo,
really.
Yeah.
And I agree with you, Will, on the timing of this is dreadful for RTE. Basically, this whole thing blew up a couple of months ago, and it was only quelled by the fact that they said, okay, there's going to be an Oireachtas committee hearing on July 12th, which is now right upon us, and we're just going to have a conversation about broadcasting in sport. I think Virgin are going, TG Carr, everybody's going.
It's broken
RTE.
into effectively 3 panels,
Yeah.
so it was unlikely to get a huge amount of attention in a singular form anyway.
But now, in light of where the Dáil are with RTE, suddenly that becomes a much bigger conversation. So I think any leash that might have been there has probably been shortened massively.
The highlights thing is interesting though, because like say Six Nations, right?
Yeah.
You know, Virgin will show a game or whatever. It's on it, like even it could be an hour or 2 after sometimes, and there's a highlight show on, and it's like because some people don't see it live, and it's just part of the service of it. I don't understand why we don't have that with GEA. We have a set time where the Sunday game is on. They've thrown the odd Saturday game, but like say the Limerick Galway game next weekend. Why wouldn't that just be on as a highlights thing an hour or 2 later? You know, it's again, it's hard to understand, really, isn't it? Like it's an All-Ireland semi-final. It's just like wait a day.
One of the few positives about GA Go that I actually really like, if you are a subscriber, is that all the games stay up there that can be rewatched pretty much instantly
on
online,
demand,
which is fantastic. I know for our purposes sometimes if you need to rewatch a game or watch something very specific, on Sky that wasn't the case. Generally it could take quite a while for the full game to go up, probably depending on who's in the office in Sky to actually put it up, but they weren't available on demand in the same quality that they are with GA Go right now. It's one thing you would like about the service.
2 quick hits before we go to a break, and there are more topics to get to on the far side. These are fast-paced quick hits. Hi Jam, as in Jawm, Joe, Arthur, Will, Mick. Although with Boohig here, I don't know how that works. Jock. Outside of the sports you regularly cover on OTB, what is the sport you most like, admire, or love to watch? Best slot on radio. Aidan.
What's your favourite sport?
Out of the sports that I watch to cover here on the show, I don't have time to watch many outside of what I cover. We don't do much golf on the evening show, but we do lots on Golf Weekly, as the name suggests.
So it's still work.
I don't think I have time. I'm struggling to think of a single sport I watch that isn't, if I'm being honest about it, linked to how my Monday is going to shape up.
Yeah, no, it's fair.
Anyone else?
Test cricket.
Test cricket, okay.
Are you
yeah,
saying that
nice.
just because it's on at the moment?
Oh no, I think it's highlighted because the Ashes are on now.
I'm watching a lot of cricket at the moment.
Yeah.
There's an email for you very shortly then if you're into your cricket.
I don't have a whole lot of graw for 2020. I like one day, but I will definitely sit down to watch Test series. Particularly I tend to watch as much of the Ashes as I can, even when it's in Australia.
Okay, cricket.
Basketball is definitely up there. American football on Sunday night.
Yeah,
Ritual
you'd
in
be
Ireland.
American football.
Yeah, American football will probably be my one, alright, yeah. Like, I was saying this to you before, like, when I started working in sport, like after 2 or 3 years, watching sport starts to feel a little bit like work, and it had always been the opposite of that. It was to get away from school or work or whatever. So I found that my graw for the Sunday nights with the American football, would work weekends at the time, and get home wrecked on a Sunday evening and just plank myself down to watch 7 hours or whatever of it. It became such a refuge for me, and I got so into it at that time. It's fading a little bit just because I can't stay up anymore. But no, I do. Yeah, I'd say American football would be my answer. Because to be honest, the 4 main sports that we cover are the 4 main sports that I watch and always have. Yeah.
Similar. Colm Boohig, what do you got for us?
Eurosport.
That's not a sport.
You throw it on at like 2 a.m, you get snowboarding, you get a bit of
tennis
skiing.
Is your answer,
you get a bit of
tennis.
Every time I'm away, like if you be away maybe like a weekend break somewhere, you know, and you throw on the TV when you get in after a night out, you're like, there's always snowboarding on somewhere.
So it's
and I watched this and I was like, we will never never cover this ever.
I actually don't believe you watch it.
I will throw it on. I find it very tranquil.
I'd watch anything.
I find it very nice. Also, my algorithm on TikTok and Instagram is full of WWE old clips from the Attitude Era.
It's not a sport.
It's athletic. And then
predetermined athletic competition.
To give you another answer that would probably make you happy is tennis.
Yeah, tennis.
Well, tennis is your answer.
It is your answer.
It's my third answer.
Yeah,
it's what you watch.
Snowboarding. It's so good. It's so good to watch. Like it's so good. How do you get into snowboarding?
That's such a goal.
How do you get into snowboarding?
How do you get into?
I mean this sincerely. Name me 3 snowboarders. Go.
Obviously, I can't name. I'm watching for the love of the sport.
I'm
not at all. What do you mean by that?
You don't watch snowboarding. I'd say if we could tot up the minutes you spent watching snowboarding the last year, we'd get to about 18 drunken minutes at 2 a.m. after one wedding.
No, it wouldn't be weddings. No, it would be when you're away, like, and it's something very peaceful about it. They always seem so happy with life too.
Okay. I'm not buying it.
And also, there's so much to it. Like, there's so much skill to it.
Well, thanks for pointing out the intricacies there.
So when you were young,
no, you move your hips. It's very difficult. Like, have you been skiing?
No. On the to-do list. Everyone.
Yeah. So skiing is quite basic versus snowboarding. Snowboarding is there's so much to it. Like, and you can really damage yourself if you don't do it right. So I have a lot of respect for the art.
No, I get
of
that.
Snowboarding.
I get that.
Were you a Trans World Sport kid then?
Yeah.
That's where this came from.
Yeah. Eurosport used to be channel 15 and multi-channel. I used to live in it.
Did you? Yeah.
Yeah, because they also showed a lot of tennis there.
Ski Sunday?
I wish it was ski every day. It was what a sport, and it's a pity we don't have it here. Novak Djokovic learned his movement via skiing.
I thought he played in an empty swimming pool.
No, that was his first sport. Skiing was his thing.
Djokovic.
Is there a lot of guff about Djokovic and his methods?
His empty
Let's be
swimming
honest.
pool.
There's a lot of.
There is, yeah.
You want to know his secret?
Gluten-free.
Gluten-free and snowboarding. Would you stop?
And no vaccinations.
Well, he had one Grand Slam until he went gluten-free.
Yeah.
What age did he become gluten-free at?
It was in 2011. So I'd say he's what? 36 now. So that's 12 years ago. So he's 24.
24.
Find that very strange.
He was always talented, and people used to question his stamina. Federer had no time for him at the time. And then suddenly changed his diet, and wow, best player of all time.
Wow.
Via skiing.
I'm going to let that hang. We're taking a short break. We're back with more of a slight tangent in just 1 moment. You're welcome back. A slight tangent coming at you. You can get us at offtheball.com. A slight tangent at offtheball.com. It's me, Will, Michael, and Colm Boohig is in the house. A brief word. Are we sorry to see a real changing of the guard at Sky? We've lost, in the space of a summer, Stelling, Martin Tyler, and now, well done, Jeff Shreves is gone at the end of this season. It was just announced there today.
I'll never get the moment when he was at Barcelona against Chelsea. Colm will definitely know this one. Who were the 2 players he told were suspended?
Ashley Cole and
Ivanišević found out, or Ivanovic found out from Jeff Shreves that he was banned for the Champions League.
Why did Shreves get slack for that? I thought that was fine.
I just thought it was really funny.
Yeah.
The wording was fine. It was just the tone. That's all it was. And then Ivanovic had to turn to Ashley Cole in comical fashion and be like, "What did he say?"
No, you're not going to Munich, buddy.
Like,
my main memory of him is Ferguson, if he hadn't peeved him off, saying, "Well done, Jeff." That's the Jeff Shreves era for me that I remember.
Shreves used to take on Ferguson.
A little bit, yeah.
Take him on.
It's a very tough job. Extremely tough, because you got to see the same person the following week and the following week and the following week. You've got to take them on, but equally they need to like you enough that they might give you something of themselves in the good times.
Yeah.
And that is the double whammy. You can generally be one of those things. It's hard to be both. He did an okay job of it.
He had a great argument with Mick McCarthy that time do you remember when Mick dropped all the players for a Man United match when he was Wolves manager and they won the next week and Mick was coming out just ready for You know, how many points do we have? How many points do we have? And Jeff's just asking questions. It was just a brilliant back and forth. The thing I would say about Jeff Shreeves is, like, I agree that that's a tough job, but it also kind of needs to be an anonymous job. And for 20 of the 30 years that Jeff Shreeves was at Sky, he was doing a grand job and I didn't know who he was.
I don't like
and then suddenly he's a big celebrity and he's doing the on-pitch things himself. It's like, oh, we've got Jeff at the match today.
I disagree with the anonymous part. I actually I hate now when interviews are done and it's an anonymous reporter asking the questions. I love when it's like, oh, here's Tony O'Donoghue and Martin O'Neill. Here's Jeff and whoever. I hate when it's...
It shouldn't be about Jeff, though, I suppose.
I didn't feel he made it about himself overly.
There were times, I would say. Again, I thought that Sky, it's just the way they started presenting things in general.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the Neville Carragher era, it's just everything is about... I don't know, maybe it's just a bit of fun and I'm being a weird old fogey, but I do feel like they kind of just wanted everything to be about the sort of celeb aspect of it, you know, like making big, like Martin Tyler's even and its live thing. I don't think he used to say that, did he? He definitely didn't say it as a catchphrase back in the day, and it's just like, oh, does everything have to be so planned? Does everything just have to be so contrived? Exactly.
See, I'm okay with the it's live thing if it's a really big game. The problem was it could be Newcastle against Brentford on a early Sunday kickoff.
When the hell else? We've had live football for like 70 years. Yeah. I know it's live. I'm watching it.
You could tell when you
time it's on every week.
It was a bit late in the day to start celebrating the live aspect. And it's in colour.
I presume it was to incorporate the little break that Sky put in before the games.
Yeah. It was like to let everyone know we're doing a little thing. But
please don't go away for 40 seconds.
Again, I loved everything about Tyler, so I'm
a big Martin Tyler fan, sorry, and I picked a specific thing on him to talk about my non-plusness about Jeff Shreeves.
I can't say either.
He's the smallest loss in the tree.
No, I can't say either. I'll be like, God, it's not the same without Shreevesy.
I don't know. Shreeves is very good interviewer. Very good. Like, sometimes you can see in the reporter's silhouette when they're interviewing a manager and they're furiously nodding as soon as the manager starts talking. It's like, please don't castigate me. Please don't give out to me here. I do not want to be humiliated. He never seemed to be bothered by that. And I don't think that changed when he became a bit known.
Yeah, maybe he needed to be a bit known for him to have the confidence to get blasted.
I thought he asked really good questions. I look forward to his interviews. Patrick Davison's quite good.
Yeah,
he has no problem taking on Jurgen Klopp. Problem when you do that is Klopp will lose time for you.
Yeah, Des Kelly and Klopp had that period when they kept having half 12 matches, but then Des Kelly more recently did get his armband signed, so
I think he's a bit overly familiar. I think he's a bit like every time he interviews Jack Grealish, he's his buddy.
Come here, after those three, Davidson, Shreeves and Kelly, who is the preeminent post-match football interviewer in the UK? I don't feel there is one.
Yeah,
I know, like, there's a lot of dull interviews, aren't there?
Yeah,
that's what I mean. Yeah,
and Sky put Shreeves on all their big games, really.
Like, I want a bit of oomph in there. I need Shreeves, fame is a curious commodity, but he had a bit of fame and a bit of oomph, so I felt that gave him a certain leverage to push back and to be part of a conversation instead of the nodding dog syndrome, which I think is what we get from the anonymous.
Was it Gabriel Clark who used to do good bit for ITV?
Oh, sorry, now we're talking about Gabriel Clark. What a voice.
Why do you think Sky are moving on?
I don't know.
Like, it seems like there's a desperation to move on for the last 3 or 4 years to freshen things up, and maybe they are just ahead of the time in like this. It does need to all of us happen eventually, and nobody ever thinks it's now. And maybe you're better off getting the fresh voices, but even like it just, I don't know, I just feel like that they're lacking a little bit. Like, I mean, the whole world wanted them to sign Peter Drury. It shows you how many people are watching illegal streams of the Premier League when everybody's going on about how great he's been on the world feed for however long, and they've got him. So look, everybody has to be happy now. That's fine. But in terms of Jeff and the whole Soccer Saturday thing, I always thought Soccer Saturday worked, and I don't mind. I just don't know if you ever need, like, why do they always need to change it in one go, or get rid of everybody together? There is an institution to it that's kind of just gone now. Jeff wouldn't have lasted forever, but whether he was pushed or went himself, I don't think he would have went if things hadn't seemingly got so sour there for the last couple of years.
The reporting seems to be he was offered less money and elected not to accept that.
It's a Shreeves now.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, you meant Stelling.
Sorry. He's the only one with Jeff as first name only.
Merson in that book talks about his first ever Soccer Saturday appearance, and it was one of his bad gambling spells. So he was like looking at his accumulator, and they threw to him he was doing some Hull game in the championship. They're like, Paul, what's happened? There's been a chance in the Hull game, and he wasn't watching.
Oh no!
So he got a tap on the knee to be like, just make it up. So he was like, oh, there was a great chance, you should have seen it. Oh my God, I can't even describe it, it was so good. Just went over though anyway. And that was Soccer Saturday, was if you described it to someone who hadn't seen it, they never watch it. Just a lot of lads talking about a match that you can't see yourself. It worked. Also, Soccer Saturday, or Soccer AM, is a sad miss.
No,
come on.
That was well past the sell by date.
Depends
That
on where
should
you're
have been
going.
gone 15 years.
They did a good job. They did a good job.
Long gone.
Did you watch it
Have
post
you watched
Lovejoy?
it?
Anytime I flicked in.
Did you watch it post Lovejoy much?
Yeah, every so often. Yeah.
It's the worst of what sports television could be.
What do you mean?
A banter fest, like just absolute nonsense, just vacuous,
Surprised
empty
now at you.
bullshit.
I liked it of a Saturday morning.
So what did you like about it at this stage?
I liked the presenter, Fenners.
You like Noel Gallagher was on it every 2 weeks.
I wasn't mad at Bullard, because his novelty wore off very quickly.
Yeah.
Remember when he was a bit of a star in the mid to late noughties, and they were like, well, we can cash in on this. He's already better on TalkSport than he was in Soccer AM.
Bullard is brilliant at doing the football demonstrations. I like that. But did you not just have this great sense of, God, I'm watching something which is so gone by?
I was watching something that was
sell by date.
Oh yeah, I don't know.
You enjoyed being part of that, did you?
It was nowhere near as good, but I enjoyed it as part of a Saturday morning routine.
What does Fenners bring to the party?
He's very composed as a presenter.
Jeez,
yeah.
Sign me up. Exciting.
What are they talking about that you're interested in?
Huh?
What are they talking about that you're interested in?
It's more.
They don't even talk about football anymore.
Did you see the last? You obviously didn't see the last episode. So Jack Whitehall was on it, and they have like a bit of a delay, like about 5 or 10 seconds, and there was about 3 or 4 silences inserted from whatever Whitehall said, and that was all Fenners' interview style to get it out of him. He says something a bit dodgy, it's kind of interesting to have a Saturday morning.
But we never got to hear it.
Yeah, but it's a little bit of a riskiness to it, and I like that.
Okay.
I think it's easy to look down your nose at Soccer AM because it went on for so long.
I think YouTube killed it, Colm.
It also, it's part of this new rebrand from Sky or whatever they're doing, and it's gone as well.
So what is the new Sky? Do we know?
It's going to be, I think, social media heavy. There's a show on instead of that now where it's a load of fans basically gathering.
Stop.
And I think that's way worse than Soccer AM.
The one thing I don't want to hear from on any of these shows is fans. Who wants to hear them?
Fan TV have a lot to answer for. I know one of those emails talks about Arsenal.
But can they not just exist on YouTube for the people that want to
That's
watch
what they're
them?
doing. They're pushing that.
Nobody's going to tune in to watch fans on Sky.
I think they will.
Jeopardy
They'll
used to
hate
do-
watch. That's what they want, the numbers.
Yeah.
will
Jeopardy
hate watch.
follower
No
accounts.
chance. The novelty will die off.
I don't think so either. I don't think it's
Sky
good.
Sports News for the best part of an hour yesterday had just YouTubers on, one after another.
Yeah.
But that's very cheap television.
I know, but if they have done a couple of shows in this format as well, where they'll get fans into a studio. It'll be hosted by people who host fan channels already. It's banter, and you're just going to get the numbers by clipping stuff. It's a bit depressing, don't get me wrong. But generally, I think what
are people with brains meant to do?
Yeah.
That's snap.
What kills Soccer AM?
But it is true though. Where was the Sunday Supplement used to be on? What was
I love that. I love
Yeah.
the Sunday. They should never have dropped that.
Where's
That was a great show.
just normal conversation, intelligent, informed people?
A slight tangent.
No,
Not just fans.
And
The brain thing isn't snobbery there, right?
I
It
don't
isn't,
mean
because
that
they're
in a
not
snobby way.
talking about anything. They're not talking about anything. They're just having fights for the sake of fights. There's no actual nuanced discussion about football at any point in any of these things. It's just idiots. Like the same people you get on Twitter who'll be like, oh, Man City did it, cry more. And it's like, that's the entire thing. My only focus is my club are right, your club are wrong.
You know about the fan
Nobody
stuff?
needs to see that.
Fan stuff.
Yeah,
Nobody needs that on
I don't
television.
enjoy it. I won't be tuning into that now.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm saying that I think,
that's the direction
Soccer
they're
AM
going.
has a bit of production value to it at least. But if they're
I'll give you
replacing
that.
it with that,
So
it's definitely going downhill.
So, but you think that's the direction they're going in, and you agree with Will that it will do well numbers wise?
Oh yeah. Oh,
Right.
people.
Oh, well,
look at TalkSport's numbers as well. Like,
If I'm in the minority, then
I'm not
happy to be
agreeing when
wrong.
I say numbers. Like, I don't like that I say that, and because it's true.
Yeah.
But it's not. You're not going to enjoy. You're not going to learn anything from it. You're definitely not learning anything here.
No.
That's the problem. But like, people love a hate watch. Do you know, people like they might have a trouble in their lives or whatever, and they just want escapism, and they're just like, I'm just going to get angry at this. I'm going to take my anger out in this clip and hate watch it and throw a comment in there.
You're not selling that to me.
I was going
not
to say,
saying
it's a
anything.
great business model, isn't it? Like, hopefully people will hate us enough to watch
Well, I
it.
guess, yeah. Or just hateful stuff. Fox has done very well from the old hate.
Yeah. They're trying to put
Lads.
themselves on the side of the things, on the side of you as you
No, but
hate the world.
The fans will be appealing to other fans. Lads, long time listener, second timer. Anyway, love the show and this segment, especially a question for the ASTT team. I inserted 2 T's there, sorry.
I know.
Where do you stand on sporting SH1T housery? In the wake of the Aussie player bowling Bairstow out, as he's fully entitled to do by the rules of the book, I think it's a great example of it. And I have to say, I'm in favour of it. I hate unwritten rules in sport. Either it's in the rule book or it's not. And if you fall foul of such SH1T housery, pun intended, tough SH1T. And he goes on to say, this email has been difficult for me to read.
Very caring email.
Very composed.
I would much rather my sports people, as a final thought, play to the letter of the law rather than the spirit of some unwritten rule which they're supposed to abide by. What do the AST team think? Love the show, John. Couldn't agree more.
Really?
Unwritten rules.
There should be no such thing as sportsmanship.
Like, I'll go back on myself. I did think that time when Overmars pounced on the ball back in the late 90s.
Oh, the Sheffield United.
Like, that is, I don't know if, to be fair, I don't know if that's a written rule.
No, it isn't.
Okay, well then I thought, yeah, I'm coming back on myself a little bit. I think that was a touch. There is a real unwritten rule there. I don't know where I stand on player going down injured and opposition ignoring that player. I think in the main I don't mind it.
No, I don't mind that either. I think it
to the ref
depends
in
on
that
what it
case.
is.
Yeah.
So what are there other examples of this cricket business? What's the parallel with what he did? Because I didn't think what he did was that wrong.
Well, this is where it comes though. This is where the letter. This is actually one of the best examples ever, because there was an awful lot of kind of whataboutery, of like from the Aussies mainly on, look at this is what Bairstow did yesterday, because he's a wicketkeeper as well.
Can I just say?
Yeah.
I don't know if I felt that was whataboutery. I thought, well, that's a good point. That's pretty damning.
Okay, no, fair enough. Except I just thought it was a different circumstance. I really did. I thought it was more within the play, and people like it's a fair, like, without getting into
I wouldn't
specifics,
appreciate that nuance. It's
whenever
the
about
last
getting
ball of the
into
over.
specifics, kind of.
Yeah.
But it's also like, it is a fair thing for a wicketkeeper to try and stump a batter who stands out of his crease. So as part of your shot or whatever, you might go down the ground a little bit, and it's your job to get back. Like, that's absolutely part of the game. And some would say this is part of the game. And I've started to, like, I mean, Owen Morgan was on when they showed the clips of the the Lord's crazies screaming at the Aussie players, which was one of those mad things. And he goes, they're just showing a fundamental misunderstanding of the game. He was stumped, and it was incredibly strong stuff from Morgan, especially kind of going against the English side of it. And so that's mainly what I think. From my point of view, I think that he stood around, he marked the thing and walked away. He did it way too early. He was clumsy. Yeah. But he wasn't trying to get a run. There was no chance that he was actually going to gain from it at all. And there was opportunism there, and got him out. And by the letter of the law, absolutely. But I just don't think, do you need that stuff in sport? Like, is that how you want to win games? And that's the way I want to say. People, just like everything, I think more and more comes down to bottom line. We won, you didn't, right? And that's fair. That's the way it is. I still maybe have an old-fashioned romanticism to me that I think there'd be nothing wrong with saying this isn't how we do it. That's just not cricket, old boy.
Okay, you make a very strong point.
I think if I'm the Australian captain, I would have turned around to the umpires and said, look, it was clear the over was complete. Yeah. Let's just continue on. Okay. But it's interesting that the reaction in Australia very much is the score is 2-0 now, England, take that. And I saw Dominic Cork, the former England player, on Sky Sports yesterday, and he was saying, yesterday, cricket died. Wow. That is the reaction there has been in England.
What's the point of the rule book if it's not all encompassing? Just have the rule book or don't, not this like responsibility on players to make moral judgments.
Yeah. It's one of those very strange ones, Joe, though, where genuinely I think the feel is that the play has gone dead and the over.
No, I listen, I get it.
Especially like when he marks his territory with his foot, he's given no indication that he's trying to take a cheap run. Also, the ball is carried through to the wicketkeeper, so I think most people would accept that as the play has finished, let's just change the pitch around and get ready for the next over. I would not blame the Australians at all, by the way, for seizing the moment and trying to take a wicket, but I just wonder if you put your hands up at that point and say, this isn't quite cricket, is it?
You're Paolo Di Canio catching the ball.
I was literally
a little bit, yeah.
By the way, that ball was too high for him to do anything.
I know,
bullshit.
Oh my God, I was literally about to say the most overrated
Full
example.
SH1T,
the most overrated example of sportsmanship.
It's a joke.
Everyone was like, he was definitely going to score. It was a tap-in. He was like 12 yards out with two Everton players around
behind him.
And there was no pace in that ball.
Oh, no,
and then Harry Redknapp afterwards, I could have killed him.
What was he going to do with it? Like he might have got his head to it.
And that's the other side. That's sportsmanship for the Hollywood side of it.
Did Ronnie Fowler catch one as well?
He missed a penalty on purpose.
That's the one, yeah.
Fowler.
That's when McAteer tapped it in.
Oh no, he didn't miss it on purpose.
He
told the ref it wasn't a penalty.
He told the ref it wasn't a penalty, and then he happened
to miss it. Yeah, it was against Arsenal.
In his book, he was like, "I didn't try to miss, I tried to score." And McAteer scored the rebounder.
Somebody else missed a penalty on purpose, which I can't quite think of now. But
I'll tell you a really good example.
I would just say, as a riposte to my, I don't have a great problem with the not obeying the spirit of the law. I do love a bit of sportsmanship at the same time. It's a beautiful thing to see. I'm not having to Candio.
I've never had it. Never had it.
I'll give you a great example of it. Do you remember Leeds and Villa played in the Championship the year Villa got promoted? They were under a 10-0 win, and Leeds got I can't even remember what happened. I think it was Villa player down, head injury, something. Leeds got a goal that they shouldn't have, and Villa were going mad, and Bielsa went mad about it and told Leeds to let Villa score from the tip-off, and the only player who didn't want to do it was Pontus Jansson. What's his name? Pontus Jansson. And Pontus Jansson desperately tried to tackle the player as everybody else let him through, and I think it was Onama who scored, and Jansson was on the ground banging his fists.
Bielsa was spying on Derby at the same time. He's like,
but he was in the moment, whether he's right or wrong.
Also, do you know what I loved
about that? It was a brilliant thing of sportsmanship.
When Bielsa did a presentation of what he had found.
Well, it wasn't against the rules at the time.
It was brilliant.
And he laid out exactly what he'd done. There was a weird dignity to the whole debacle. Pretty much out of time.
The whole thing just reminds me of Frank Lampard singing his own chant when they do you not remember there was a chant about Frank Lampard after they beat Leeds, and Lampard was in the dressing room in the middle of the circle with everybody covered in champagne singing his own chant.
Do you know what I wanted to talk to you guys about? It is way after the fact, but I'm
AST extra.
Don't give me your opinions now, but I do want to get your sense of the Jack Grealish celebrations after the Champions League final. I'm just curious. I think there's something really interesting that we'll have you back again.
Because I'm not going to be back. Come here.
He's decided.
Come here.
No,
we gotta.
Quickly, give me your 30 seconds.
I absolutely loved it, and I thought more of this, please.
Okay.
Because he had done all the work. And now have a good time.
Yeah.
And it was brilliant.
We'll discuss if it was professional.
I think very likeable
next week.
So if he was a more peripheral figure for the season, you wouldn't have enjoyed him going on the tear.
Interesting.
I think the camera would have been anywhere near him if he was so peripheral.
Well, there's that too. Yeah. There are several emails I really wanted to get to and didn't. We will do that potentially next week at some stage in the next couple of weeks.
Those emails weren't good enough, they're gone.
No, there was a very good one. For instance, Dear Dr. O'D in the Tangent 3. Oh, that's far too catchy.
Very good.
Steady. Long time, first time. Yeah. As I sit completely bored, someone wrote this mid-game, as I sit completely bored and frustrated watching Armagh Monaghan. By the way, I watched Armagh Monaghan with two people who never watched GA. And midway through the second half, they were like, what is this?
Yeah.
Couldn't get their head around
it.
And by the time we got to penalties, they were both saying, I don't want either of these teams to win. It was amazing insight to watch it. They were like, this has just been an insult to people.
Yeah.
The pain, the pain.
Football can be dire.
Yeah.
We're out of time there.
Sorry, we're out of time.
Yeah, you said 30 seconds.
What's this email about?
I can still be talking about Jack Grealish.
As I sit completely bored and frustrated watching Armagh Monaghan, I noticed a lone crisp packet flutter across the grass. I noticed it as well.
I forgot this.
And it got me thinking, what is the best or most significant non-human intervention on a field, course or ring of play? The Liverpool beach ball and the international rules dog are two that come to mind, but surely I've forgotten something. I'll continue to think of more interesting things than this scutter they call football. Keane in minute.
Stan Collymore took a shot against Tim Flowers and it hit a divot. And it was beautiful because I think Collymore turned away in disgust.
Went over Flowers' head. Yeah. What about the time when the New England Patriots scored a touchdown against the Buffalo Bills and in the end zone was waiting a large dildo?
Class. I didn't see that coming.
Wasn't there an alligator and a crocodile who took a ball on the fairway?
Oh, Happy Gilmore.
The golfers go up and hit the alligators on the tail all the time. Like for a group of sports people not renowned for physical bravery, they don't seem to be afraid of gators.
They've got a stick.
No, they go up in their hand and tap them.
Yeah,
you stick it into YouTube now and just search golfer alligator. You'll see professional golfers looking, like fairly unimpressive specimens walking up a fairway. There's an alligator there. They'll jog up behind, give the old gator a pat.
Your hand when you've got a wedge in your hand.
No, they just seem to not be afraid of them. And then the gator's straight into the water, gone.
These guys have probably grown up in the southern United
They're
States.
the better of the two.
Florida folk.
We're so over time. Sorry. Will O'Callaghan, thank you very much.
Cheers.
Michael McCarthy, thank you.
Thanks.
Colm Boohig, what a triumph. What a triumph. What a triumph.
Thanks very much.
Excellent.
Thanks for
Marks out of
having
10 to at a slight tangent at offtheball.com.
2.
Okay, we're done.
2.